Hi folks, it's Andy here. One or two people were asking in Ranzee's live stream today about the modular setup which I've put together, what's in it, why I've chosen what I've chosen. So I thought I'd have a sort of little walkthrough of the modules that I've got so far in my journey and the thinking behind each one of them, if you like. There is a reason why I've got the particular modules. Some are obvious reasons, some are less obvious. Some are based very much on supply and demand, what I can actually get. Particularly with the Behringer modules, that's definitely true at the moment. Some of them can be quite hard to get hold of. So the first thing to mention is that I spent a lot of time looking particularly at cases. They're always a bit of a headache, aren't they, eurorack cases? And after a lot of umming and ahhing and head scratching as to what was the best way to go, I sort of decided that the Behringer Go case seemed to provide the best value for money in terms of the size of the rack compared to the cost. You've got two rows of 140 HP and you've got built-in power and a nice little stand to angle. I just seemed to make sense to me to go that way. I really didn't give any consideration to fixed rails or sliding nuts. That didn't seem to be something that I was particularly worried about. However, I have already come up against the pros and cons of sliding nuts. I mean, sometimes they're great and sometimes they're a blooming nuisance, but you make your choice and you've got to stick with it. So, the first module which I got, I didn't actually buy myself. It's this module here. I'm pointing my finger at it now. Ta-da. That's the Behringer 121 dual VCF, so filter in their System 100 range. I was sent that very, very kindly by Jamie of Geosynths. He sent me that as a little prezi just to get me going, and I'm very grateful to him for sending it. It started me off on my journey. Excuse me. The the rack had actually sat empty for quite a while with nothing in it, and that was my first module, and it was a joy and a delight to put it into the rack, even though there was nothing else there. It's a module I haven't used very much. You'll see why in a minute, but it is extremely useful, if nothing else, because it's got three inputs at the top on each channel, so you can actually use it as a little submixer, and I think that's going to really prove valuable further down the line. So the first actual Eurorack module which I purchased was this one here. Okay, the sequential controller 960 from Behringer, and I purchased alongside the Behringer D, which is here up on the left hand side. I took it out of the box and put it in the row rack. I mentioned before on Ranzee's the reason I went for that was I wanted that sort of tangerine dream sequence of sound, and that was the way to go about in the most cost effective way, it seemed to me at the time. Started off with those tools. I'll to get you but really is and having those sort of needs and dreams definitely quantizer. So I'm looking at what was probably the simply A1 fix QN top that was going to have to screw fabrical quantity to make, and there's even the option here for transposing up and down the scale from an external CV. I have not played with that yet, but I will at some point. The other module which I decided that I was going to need was a delay, and I again just ummed and ahed a little bit about which way to go, and I eventually plumped for the Dreadbox Nostalgia, which is I think it's a Bucket Brigade delay. It certainly sounds analog. It's got all of those sort of grungy artifacts, and it really does give that sort of old-fashioned delay sort of sound. I'm very, very pleased with that, and it's dead easy just to plug in, move the sliders around, get it going into weird territory. A really lovely little delay, not too complicated. My little brain can work that one out, so it can't be too bad. The next things were mults. I thought, well, I'm going to need to have a mult. So I thought, well, that's a must. So I'd already got the Behringer 121 from Jamie, so I thought, well, I might as well continue in that series. So I acquired the 173 mults and gates module. I have to be honest and say I don't really know what the gate things at the top do. That's something to explore later. But the mults have really been useful. There's nothing plugged into them right now, but they have been useful just for the usual needing to send things to more than one place. And I also thought I'm going to need a mixer and an output module and something with a headphone socket. And again, for similar reasons, I went for the Behringer 305 module. Now it's a big thing, and I'm sort of looking at it now, thinking I'm not really sure that was necessarily the best choice. If you look at this, it's almost in two halves. The right hand side is the mixer section with 4 inputs and pan controls, which is great. The left hand side is a parametric EQ. And I know that's faithful to the old Roland System 100M modules, but I've never felt the need to plug anything into that yet. It's there should I choose to, but it's taking up what seems to me an awful lot of space. Maybe one day I'll think about getting something different. But the big plus for this module is not just its little mixer, but the stereo output here, which is on 1/4-inch jacks or eurorack level mini jacks. So that's really, really handy. And it has a headphone output which kicks out a reasonably high level. Another thing that it has, which is extraordinarily useful, is here a tuning oscillator that puts out different A pitches, so A440, A220, and so on. Really, really handy. You just turn it up, and you get the pitch. It's great. What a useful little inclusion that is. The next step on my journey was to get another voice. Now, clearly, the Behringer D is a totally self-contained synthesizer. It's its own little world, if you like. So there's no problems getting a sound out of that, really. If you understand basic synthesizer, you can get sound out of that. But I wanted a second voice to sort of play alongside it. And as I'd already started down the path of the System 100 from Behringer, I thought, well, I might as well carry on along that journey for a while yet, until I've sort of built up that system, if you like. At that point, it was virtually impossible to get the dual oscillators, the dual VCAs, and the step sequencer, that you couldn't get them. They were like 12, 15 weeks waiting time, even ordering them from Toolman. What was available on a shorter waiting time was the 110, which is a single oscillator, single filter, single amplifier in a module, which is really, really great. I mean, if anyone's interested in that one, I can thoroughly recommend you have a look at Tim Shoebridge's video on that. It's great. It's dead simple. It works a treat, and it just sounds good. So I got that module, and I paired it with the dual envelope generator, which turns that bit there, the 110 module and the 140 module. These two together make like an entire synth voice. You still have to patch them, which is fun, but they work really, really beautifully, and they sound nice, as you can hear on this. That little bass sound there is coming from, take this one out. There, that's coming from this. So great little module, really great little module. I also realised that the sounds were very dry, and I wanted something that was going to sit in the rack and not just be an effects send from the desk. Sorry, I've just clonked the camera. I think everything's just gone to sleep now. Has that come back? Have I got it back there? This is where I'll have to get into video editing, isn't it? Right, so the next thing I bought was the Z5000 module from Tip Top, because I realised I was going to need some effects in the rack beyond just delays, and that's been a lot of fun. It just sounds great. It's relatively inexpensive, and it just does what it's supposed to do. I've not quite got my head around how you select different reverbs and delays with any degree of intention. You seem to go, oh, that one sounds nice, I love that. You do that by the sort of buttons on the top, but I just found it a sensible choice. It's easy, it's uncomplicated at first steps. I mean, I'm sure it could get more complicated, but it seems to be doing the job that I need it to do quite happily right now. The last sort of step that I've gone through is I've dug out my old BeatStep Pro. Now, this is a machine that I've had a love-hate relationship with ever since I bought it. But now that I've got sort of modular and CV possibilities here, I thought, well, okay, the BeatStep Pro might begin to show its colours a bit better. So I've dug it out, and I've just been playing about in the last couple of days with sending control voltages to the various modules in the rack, and writing little ditties, just seeing what I could make it do. And it seems to handle it. I've heard some people talking about tuning issues with the control voltage outputs from the Arturia, but mine have tracked perfectly well over quite good octave ranges, so I've not noticed anything untoward yet with it, although that may happen. So there it is. That's my eurorack for now. There are more modules in the pipeline. One is definitely in the post, I hope. But it's a system which will, I hope, I will grow into and start getting some interesting things out of. I appreciate that something like the Model D takes up an awful lot of rack room, and it may well be that this will come out and go back in its own box at some point as I expand, because I'm bound to. People have already said you've fallen down that rabbit hole, Brooksy. There's no clawing your way out. Well, we'll see. I mean, this is still a reasonably big case. There's still plenty of room in it, and if I take the D out, there'll be more room still. So watch this space. We'll see how it grows. Anyway, thank you for watching this, if anybody does watch it, and I'll see you at Ranzee's at some point in the near future. Okay, folks, take care. Bye now.